Okay, welcome to part 2 of episode 7 of the Bob World Builder BOBCAST thing, where we're still talking about some classes from Tasha's Cauldron. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm still here.
And Grace is still here. Let's go! Here's one from the College of Eloquence Bard. Now, again, this was kind of a tough one to choose from, much like the Ranger for me, because the College of Creation seemed really cool with being able to animate stuff, and for me, just a super lore-heavy subclass, because this whole idea of the Song of Creation, it's very Lord of the Rings, if you're familiar with that. So I really like that idea. That's kind of how I like to think about magic in my world. However, yeah, the features were kind of lackluster, or at least compared to this College of Eloquence. So, let me remind myself what they do. Oh yeah, basically after reading the first few features, it just made me think like, this is the bardiest bard. Because the first thing they get at 3rd level is the Silver Tongue, which whenever you make a persuasion or deception check, you can treat a d20 roll of 9 or lower as a 10.
At 3rd level?
Yeah. So
that's something that rogues have to wait
at like
much
6
longer
maybe?
for.
Yeah, 6th or even 9th or something. Like reliable talent. I don't remember what level you get it. And now granted, it's only for these 2 skills, but you're probably already proficient in at least one of these. So you're going to get like just a crazy bonus anytime you're trying to persuade or deceive somebody. And like right off the bat, it's like that's, to me, yeah, like making a bard really good at being a bard and like doing what the party expects of them. But I also like this other feature, Unsettling Words, where, yeah, as a bonus action, you can use your inspiration to subtract from like an enemy creature, like some roll that they're making, which is really interesting. And I guess on that note, I did really like the Creation Bards' variety of ways that they can use inspiration, because that's kind of what they were all about.
Yeah. This class could be sort of annoying if you have a player who's just not very clever with words, but they want to roleplay this, but they don't know what to say, you know?
Well, yeah, if you're going to be College of Eloquence, like, you better be, I don't know, pretty good at improvising.
You better be somewhat eloquent yourself.
Yeah.
Although if I played College of Eloquence, my character would just always carry around a featherless chicken and say, "Behold a man!"
What is that from?
I don't know, some kind of Greek philosophy thing that happened way back in the day.
Okay. Yep.
Something Socrates related. Someone said, man is a featherless biped, so some other asshole walks into the forum and says, "Behold a man," and has a featherless chicken.
Yeah, that is a very, but what was I going to say? Yeah, and I think it was actually in the lore for this, kind of leading up to it. Basically, yeah, these bards wield a blend of logic and theoretical wordplay, winning over skeptics and detractors with logical arguments and plucking at heartstrings, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Greek philosophy isn't about being right. It's about making sure no one else can be right.
Yeah.
Until they give up, and then you are right, because no one else wants to argue with you.
And I feel like at my most annoying, that's me. So I feel like I could do this pretty well, because I'm usually good, especially in this game that all takes place in our imaginations, at like kind of twisting things to be like, well, couldn't it be like this? You know, but like usually saying it in a way that makes sense. I've gotten away from that. That was like my original D&D playstyle. But yeah, so I feel like I would have a lot of fun with this one. Are there any others from Theros in here that you're aware of? Or that we picked, I guess? Alchemist, Rune Knight, Mercy.
Nope. Let's talk about the Artificer. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, now that you mention it, this is another one that really stood out to me. Checking out this Artificer here, which I know very little about going into this. I pretty much read the class for the first time as I was preparing for this podcast. And I find them way more interesting than I originally thought.
I don't like it.
See, I was already kind of intrigued by them because friend of the show, Dice Dre, who's in our Patreon campaign, is playing an Artificer, and it's really awesome. He can do a lot of stuff, but as someone still, who hadn't really read the class, I just kind of go along with what he says. I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. But whenever he's bringing up a feature or something he can do. But finally reading through it and then seeing all these awesome subclasses, it was actually kind of hard for me to pick. But ultimately, I went with one that is something I've kind of been wanting to design for years and like just never really got around to it. And that is this alchemist class. So in my mind, and very much what this is supposed to be, like it doesn't fully overlap with what I have in my head, but it's definitely the closest thing to it, where you can create elixirs, as they're listed here, not like potions exactly, to do some simple effects, but they also happen to be pretty awesome. So this kicks in at 3rd level, and basically you have this elixir, or they're called experimental elixirs. And you can decide what these are. There's one for healing, which is basically as good as a health potion. There's one for increasing your speed. There's one for getting a bonus to AC. And there's one for bonuses to attack rolls and saving throws. They have various durations, but basically you do this by expending a spell slot of 1st level or higher. Oh yeah, and I missed 2. You can also get a little flying speed from these, or get the alter self spell, basically, which we were talking about earlier. Little, is that Polyjuice potion, right? Harry Potter fans? Anyway, so, and they last for about a day, or, until you have another long rest. So to me, this is kind of like what our druids often do, casting Goodberry at the end of the day, just using a bunch of their spell slots, so then the next day you have all these handy Goodberries. Well, if you have spell slots left over at the end of the day, you can create straight up health potions. Like, you can get all these cool little flight potions and whatever, and they have various durations and things, but it just seems really helpful for creating a number of different things that the party could need. And as someone who likes to homebrew, I feel like as a player, if you kind of keep running into similar situations, you could ask your DM, hey, maybe I can start working on another elixir that's going to help us in situation XYZ.
Yep. But the thing that I don't like about, the thing that makes me not like artificers, is just like it causes this level of cognitive dissonance for me that just...
Because of the like kind of steampunky nature?
Well, because I really like super high fantasy, low technology settings.
Oh, okay.
Your setting does kind of have, it has like steam technology. And,
not necessarily like my favorite thing, but
yeah. But not only that, but like I think the artificer class relies too much on just like magically creating things out of thin air.
I see what you mean.
I think
that's even how these work. It's like as long as you have an empty vial, you can just like boom, fill it with.
So where is like the actual alchemy?
Yeah.
You're basically milking the venom of a snake. You're just like pressing the magic into the vial and filling it with this fluid. And then...
Well, that would be awesome. That's like a cool way to flavor it. But I think you're saying that it otherwise just comes out of thin air.
Yeah. And it's the same with like the artillerist. Your eldritch cannon...
Just like appears.
Like just appears.
Yeah.
Just magically appears.
Yeah, and I think
what are the materials?
Well, it tells you have to have your tool sets with you. It doesn't talk about
where's
material
the metal
components, I don't think.
Do you actually know how to build things? Where's the mechanical knowledge required?
That's already built into your character. Like if you're an artificer, the idea is that you know this stuff.
But then you're still not like building it.
Right. So I totally agree about the lack of actual materials, that you are just kind of crafting this out of thin air, which is a little lame. And in our game, I'll say, we've always kind of had it as like he needs to be near one of his workshops to do this stuff.
Like that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I hope that's how more people like kind of play this class, because otherwise, it's kind of like, oh, let me go into my Mary Poppins bag and just pull out whatever the heck we need today. And I do get that, because that's a lot like... Our other friend, Stephen, played a homebrew class from DM's Guild, which was a bard college of culinary, where he could just kind of create food out of thin air.
Yeah, which normally is like a spell, create food and water. But it was okay in that campaign because I didn't want to have to deal with the hassle of foraging.
Yeah, especially in the Underdark.
Underdark, so it was better that he could just do that.
Yeah, and so I agree with that a lot of the artificer stuff involves, all this building and crafting, but it doesn't actually require you to have materials, I think, at least in my cursory read of this.
Or to even physically build something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I agree with that. But I think anybody playing an artificer for the for the lore of the artificer, not just the mechanical benefit of it, does describe the process. Again, I'll touch on in our game. Dice Dre is really great at this, where I don't remember if this was my idea or his, but we got some montage music that we play whenever he's like really going at it, like creating one of these infusions or whatever. And it's kind of like this scene playing out. So I really think, if you're going to play an artificer, really lean into that aspect of actually building this stuff. Like, you're an engineer. That's kind of what this is really about. Not just like, oh, I'm going to snap my fingers and I get whatever I want. And it's a robot.
Yeah. Like, even the Forge Cleric from Xanathar's Guide requires you to have the materials laid out, and then you kind of put your hand over them and it'll turn into a sword or whatever.
But does it tell you what the materials need to be?
Any kind of metal. You just have to have the metal. If you just had to have the metal, that would be fine.
Well, I want to, and not, all right, we're getting really like caught up on Artificer here.
I guess it's mostly the Artillerist and the Alchemist class that I have a problem with. Although, I mean, I see for the experimental elixir for the Alchemist, you have to have alchemy supplies on hand. If that includes, like, herbs.
Yeah, we'd have to go into Xanathar's and find out what that includes.
But then, like, why do you have to spend a spell? I mean, I guess to enchant it. I don't know. Yeah. I just don't like it.
Yeah. And so speaking of... There we go again, speaking of enchanting and what I imagine, like, the Artillerist and really how a lot of these infusions work with, like, probably a little bit of rune craft. Do you want to talk about your Rune Knight fighter?
The only fighter I would ever play.
Really?
Rune Knight. I don't like fighters. I mean, if you listen to Aspire Peak, I played a fighter. I didn't really enjoy playing that character. I thought it was kind of boring. While it was fun to deal, like, a ton of damage, it was just, You
basically killed a dragon in one swell
Well, yeah, but with a lot of help from a blood hunter.
That's true.
Which was really fun to play. So the Rune Knight allows you... Basically, it's like a giant-themed sort of fighter. So these giant runes that you can put on your weapons or armor or shield or what have you to grant you special abilities. For example, the Cloud Rune makes you better at deception and stuff.
And is it like from each kind of giant, I guess, here? Cloud, fire,
Froststone, Hill, Storm. The Hill Giant Rune, I believe, basically lets you have all the benefits of a rage, meaning resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and, advantage on saving throws against poisoning and stuff like that. And then you can combine that with this other ability you get, Giant's Might, to grow larger, at least to large. If you're smaller than large, you become large.
Yeah.
And then you can deal, like, extra damage. And you have advantage on strength saving throws in addition. So, in my Out of the Abyss game, we had a player who combined those abilities pretty much all the time. Because he really liked being a barbarian, but he didn't want to play a second barbarian, so he just made his fighter into a barbarian.
Yeah.
Which is what all these classes basically are for. Making a subclass for every class to be a different class.
Yeah, to some degree. But I really like that idea of the hill one, I think you just said, where as long as you're not large, you just become large, like not just a size bigger.
Well, that's the Giant's Might thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're small, so you could be like a large halfling?
Isn't that
or
funny?
A large kobold? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes me think, like, that makes it really cool to actually play a fighter who is one of these races that you would typically never use just because they're little.
Yeah.
Just a large gnome?
Well, you're not... Oh, no, you do just become large.
Yeah.
Oh, for a minute.
Yeah.
For 1 minute.
But, like, that's all you need for a fight to actually do your fighter stuff. And I'll say what I kind of, like and don't like about this subclass is how it is so specifically, like, about giants. I feel like runes just should be a thing that are a little more universal in D&D. That's, like... I guess because my background with it is every time in any of our games when we would find like some item that we thought could be magical, we'd be like, Are there strange runes on it?
Yeah, I think it's just because giant lore in D&D is very much based in Nordic type of
so
stuff.
It is tied to like magic and stuff. I guess it's just because I don't love the giant lore of D&D. And I'd rather runes just be like, people can learn how to etch runes on stuff. Yeah. And if a fighter does it, they can do this cool stuff.
Because, I mean, there are giants in pretty much every religion or...
You mean culture?
Culture? Yeah.
Like, yeah, probably. Big people.
Big people. So that's neat.
I guess they pretty much get everything up front, it looks like. Like, this is all 3rd level?
Yeah. And then well, so you can only learn a certain number of runes per level. And then I think the number of runes that you can use per day
probably goes up as well. Yeah, you use it twice rather than once.
Okay, yeah. So you can touch a number of objects equal to the number of runes you know. And then you can use each rune once per rest. Okay, we're going to talk about monks now.
Great segue.
I've never played a monk, but I did really like the Way of Mercy. Because I like things that include balance and things that don't show death as an inherently bad thing. Because the thing about the Monks of Mercy is that they can harm as well as heal. Because sometimes, killing something is the best way to help it.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. And I'll say I kind of like this one too because, as I mentioned in my flip through, I always like these kind of almost, I mean, this one not so much, but like pacifist kind of classes. Because it is something kind of counterintuitive in D&D where most of the rules of the game are just based about how to kill stuff.
Yeah. So basically with the Monk of Mercy, which kind of has like a plague doctor vibe thing because you're supposed to have a mask that you wear and one of the masks is the raven, so like, the classic bird thing, and that's the one that's shown in the character art there. But the thing is, you have your Hand of Healing and your Hand of Harm.
Oh.
So, the Hand of Healing allows you to spend a key point to heal an ally, or maybe an enemy, I don't know, an amount equal to your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier. So basically, an attack that heals.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought that was funny, because here you are, like, punching out on the battlefield, and then you just, like, smack your hand out to the side to heal your ally fighting next to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the second part of this feature, which, I found really funny, because that one specifically says, when you use your flurry of blows, one of the unarmed strikes can heal.
Yep. And so you can't do that with your Hand of Harm, actually. Your Hand of Harm, you have to spend a separate key point to use. It can't be part of your flurry of blows.
Yeah, I mean, that would just be making...
Or it would be part of your flurry of blows, but then you would also spend another key point. You have to spend a key point for flurry of blows, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to spend a second one to do Hand of Harm, which basically deals an extra attack's worth of damage.
Yeah, and at that point, I feel like that's probably something that Open Hand, I think, Monk can already do. It's just like making your attacks better, so...
Yeah. But, I mean, I guess the cool thing about that is, since it just automatically deals that much extra damage without actually being a second attack, you only have to hit once to deal 2 attacks worth of damage and spend 1 key point. Yes, and then it builds on your healing and harming ability at 6th level, allowing you to basically cast Lesser Restoration to end conditions, such as blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned. And then your Hand of Harm can poison creatures.
Yeah, now I can't remember if it was this subclass or another one that I'd read that gets... Maybe that was the cat. Maybe that was one of the paladins. But like somebody got, this Lesser Restoration and was able to use it, I feel like, a lot. Actually, no, I think that was the alchemist, and we never talked about that part because we got too distracted by materials. But yeah, I think, yeah, being able to use Lesser Restoration is really handy if you're not, a cleric or somebody who already has it. Or, if nobody in your party wanted to be the cleric.
But it's also really good. You can revive creatures at 17th level by expending 5 key points.
How long can they be down?
24 hours.
Wow. What level you get this?
17th level.
Oh, okay.
So, still, around the time anyone would be getting, resurrection spells.
Yeah, but, you don't need to spend a freaking diamond to do it.
Yeah, no material components required. Which kind of makes me feel better about the fire warlock I created, that when you die, you automatically cast reincarnation on yourself. Oh. Now I no longer feel like that's overpowered, because this is pretty powerful.
Nice. And, I almost said speaking of, but I couldn't even think of
Sorry I made you so sensitive to that now.
No. I mean...
And now segue.
Yeah. Segueing into, I guess, anyway, Warlock Genie. Because Warlock, you mentioned.
Yeah, I wasn't super thrilled with any of the Warlock stuff. Except for the new Eldritch Invocation that makes for Pact of the Chain, that makes your chain companion, your familiar, much more potent. That's the only thing I thought was cool about Warlocks in this book.
Yeah, I mean, they're both pretty interesting to me, the Fathomless and the Genie patron subclasses here. But the Fathomless one, yeah, as Grace kind of summed it up to me when we were going grocery shopping one day, she was like, yeah, you kind of just get a tentacle.
It's all about the tentacle.
And much like a lot of these subclasses, say the Rune Knight or, the Alchemist or a lot of these things, it's you kind of get your thing really early on, when you take the subclass, and then the other features are just about making it cooler. And so with this, it's okay, it's all about the ocean. That's kind of a cool theme, but it would kind of be cooler to me if rather than a tentacle that were just like a tentacle of water almost, but it didn't have to look like a tentacle, because that makes me think Eldritch stuff, which is already really well covered by the Warlock with Great Old One and things along that lines.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Great Old One is supposed to be an aberration from the beyond the stars, and this one is an aberration from the ocean.
Yeah, but
though not necessarily an aberration.
Right, but I think it'd kind of be cooler if it were just the ocean itself in a way. But moving on to Genie, which is what I said I wanted to talk about. I like it because it's very elemental focused. Obviously, in D&D anyway, Genie lore, there are 4 types. Got your earth, your air, your fire, your water, which is something that I like to emphasize in the lore in my games as well, and in my home setting and stuff. Each god is tied to one of these elements, so this stood out to me for that reason. And one of the main neat things I liked about it is this Genie's Vessel. Now let me reread it to see what I actually liked about it. Oh yeah, and so basically, while you have this vessel, which can of course be classic oil lamp, but it can also be an urn, it could be a ring, it could be a bottle or a little statue or a lantern. You can basically go into it yourself. And while you're in there, you're aware of what's going on around you. So this seemed for me, the ultimate, put me in this vessel, whatever. And then my rogue can sneak me into a place and I stake it out overnight or something.
Could you put the rogue in the bottle?
I don't know if you can I think later on you can put allies in there. Yeah, Sanctuary Vessel at 10th level. I'm pretty sure that's you can put a bunch of people in.
Or just if you can't get into a castle or whatever because they won't lower the drawbridge, go in the vessel. Someone throws you over the wall.
Trojan vessel.
And you open the drawbridge.
Trojan oil lamp.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, actually, that'd be a really fun, heist kind of a job, right? Yeah. Is oh, we need to go to this party and we present this awesome looking urn or something as a gift and tell them it's the ashes of whatever dragon, but it's actually our genie in there. And when they put it in the vault later tonight, they're gonna break out, take whatever they need, go back in the vessel, and then we just gotta get the vessel back somehow. I don't know. To me, that one ability seemed like it had a lot of possibilities. With the vessel, you can also make some kind of cool attacks. Something I really liked, which is, again, something that I wanted to like try to incorporate more in my games, is this elemental gift feature where based on your kind of genie, so if it's an earth one, you get resistance to bludgeoning. If it's a fire one, you get resistance to fire, etc. And actually this last one I didn't really read, but it's called Limited Wish, so it sounds pretty powerful. You entreat your patron to grant you a small wish. As an action, you can speak your desire to your genie's vessel, requesting the effect of one spell that is 6th level or lower and has a casting time of 1 action. So it's basically casting a spell from any list. That's pretty cool. And to wrap things up, the final subclass we're going to talk about, what would this podcast episode be talking about Tasha's subclasses if we didn't mention at least one psionic subclass?
Is Tasha supposed to be psionic?
No, but there are psionics included in here for a few of them. And that was like a big deal.
Yeah,
because people were like, oh my gosh, finally, psionics in 5th edition, yay. I guess. I don't know. Is that what people sound like?
So you sound like.
Except it's not, because I didn't really care about psionic.
Aberrant Mind, the warlock great old one of sorcerers.
It's great old one theme? Oh yeah, I guess aberrant.
Yeah,
I didn't even pick up on
aberrant. That. So you become psychic.
You know,
you just gain all these psychic-y sort of spells, or access to them anyway, for your psionic spells list. And you gain telepathic speech, just like Great Old One Warlocks do. Well, it's more limited than the Great Old One Warlock because you have to share a language. And it only lasts for a certain amount of time.
I got distracted by the...
But it has a greater distance of a mile, where the Great Old One has to be 30 feet.
Okay. I was getting distracted by the aberrant origins table here, particularly number 5. As a child, you had an imaginary friend that looked like a flump or strange platypus-like creature. One day, it gifted you with psionic powers, which have ended up being not so imaginary.
What is the strange platypus-like creature supposed to be?
I don't know.
Is it
I don't
just
know
like
if that's a reference
the
to
most
something.
aberrant animal that they can think of?
Maybe. Yeah, Far Realms, Psionic Wind from the Astral Plane, Aboleth messed you up, Mind Flayers, some weird whispers in the night. Okay. Oh, Parasitic Twin. Ugh.
Yep, all very aberrant.
Yeah, and now when you read through this, because I did not read through it thoroughly, is casting spells psionically like very different?
So there's a feature for that at 6th level. You can cast it either by spending a normal spell slot or spending a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level.
Okay. I mean, sorcerers can already kind of do something like that, where they can turn points into slots.
Right, but you don't have to turn them into a slot.
Right.
I mean, I guess it's kind of redundant, but...
And I think the ratio is going to be different here, because that's like a point per level, whereas I don't remember how it breaks down for the regular conversion.
Yep. But probably one of the more interesting things about this is you can actually start like changing your body for 10 minutes. You can transform yourself to gain the ability to see invisibility, or gain a flying speed or swimming speed.
Wow.
I mean, I would probably let people, kind of do whatever they wanted with this, as long as it stuck to some guidelines. But just like, you can get really creative with your body, which is something that I really liked. Like, I've really gotten into that.
In D&D?
Yeah, in D&D. Like my one sea elf character had like a...
Oh, I know what you mean.
Like a fin, and had like gills, and she was blue.
Yeah.
She had really sharp teeth.
Right.
And then my Great Old One Sorcerer has giant bulbous eyes.
Smells like fish all the
Smells
time.
like fish all the time. Is going to become Vanta Black eventually. Just get weird with it. That's what Aberrant Mind is all about.
And I think that's what Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is all about.
Getting weird with it.
So, thank you for listening to our discussion of some things we liked in this book. And keep building.